Hey everyone, it's Adrian from the Pageant Project. My next guest is Asianna Saragosa-Torres. That's one of the harder names I've had to say, Asianna. She is a mental health advocate, radio DJ in Hawaii, and the current reigning Miss Hawaii volunteer. So I guess, Asianna, I should be saying aloha. How are you?
Yeah, aloha right back at you. I'm great. It's such an honor to be here in front of you. I've seen you've done so much pageant interviews.
I've done a few. I'm gonna see if before I actually head over for Miss Volunteer in what is it now? I mean, you tell me. It's what 3 weeks. It's
I,
soon.
yeah,
It's
it's
coming
very
up.
soon. I tried not to think too much about it, so
Fair,
I've been keeping it away, but I believe it's in 2 weeks or so. I want to
right?
say. I just know I get on the plane and I go. Yeah.
That's pretty much the attitude I'm taking.
Yeah.
Taking to. I don't want to think about it too much, only because packing for. I mean, I don't have to tell you. I'm just saying it for myself. Packing for a pageant as a guy. Normally, as a guy, you pack for something. You take minimal clothing, like just what you have to wear. I'm very much. I used to be a tennis coach, so I was very used to wearing t-shirt and shorts. So I would pack, very, very minimally. I would always have extra room in my suitcase. When you're going to a pageant, the same doesn't apply. Like, you
Yeah.
can't wear t-shirt and shorts. So I have so many jackets, so many long trousers. Even though in Tennessee it's probably going to be 80 degrees or something. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
are
I
you a
heard
good
it was going to be
packer?
really hot.
Are you a good packer? Have you got that side of things down, or is it a challenge?
It was definitely a big challenge for me, but we finally had, gotten everything packed away packing list wise. Now it's just a matter of like practicing and getting ready for the national pageant. So thankfully, I am done with that part.
I guess the first question I should ask is, how are you feeling? Because as I interview more MVA contestants, obviously we're getting closer and closer. You're right; it's more like 2 weeks rather than 3 weeks now. Sorry to keep bringing that up. I don't want to cause anxiety, but how are you feeling about the whole thing now? Now that it's so close.
I think there's so much adrenaline happening. I think I'm super excited for just such a big opportunity, especially, coming from Hawaii, which is such a small state. I feel like this is one of those things where we just need to take it and embrace it and just embrace the growth that's going to come with it and the experience that's going to come out of it as well. So I am so excited. And at the same time, I feel like I could like pull my pants honestly, because it's so scary. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, but I think there's going to be so much opportunity out of this, so much growth and so much friendship and sisterhood as well.
Can I ask? I've been to Hawaii a long, long, long time ago, but I have been there. I loved my time there. I loved the sort of, I don't know if this still applies. It was very relaxed, very much open air, no smog. The people are ridiculously friendly, which I
Yes.
do love. I mean, the people who live there, maybe not the actual tourists, but that's another matter. And interestingly, I've interviewed someone from Hawaii before, and she did pronounce it in that way, Hawaii. Um, we have a state here in Australia called Tasmania. Now, it is a separate island to the very, very south of Australia, and the Tasmanians often refer to us as mainlanders, like being in Sydney,
Oh
and they
wow.
always feel like they're a little bit excluded.
Yeah.
I mean, they are and they aren't, but sometimes they feel a bit excluded. Just to ask, with Hawaii, because you already talked about, having pageants in Hawaii is a bit different to mainland US. Do you guys feel like you have a separate identity somewhat to the mainland US, mainland US, the USA?
I think that here we embrace aloha completely. And so, that's just all about it's similar to Southern hospitality. And so
Mhm.
it's really just about giving and, asking, like, what can we do for the community? What can we do to help one another grow as a person? And so I would say that we are very accepting of
Mhm.
outsiders that are coming in, given that they are respectful, and they follow. We have a lot of rules here in Hawaii, and maybe like societal norms, like don't touch the monk seals. and we tell tourists all the time, like, don't touch the monk seals, and sometimes they're like, I want to touch the monk seal, and it doesn't sit well with us because we want to protect like our aina, we want to protect our people and keep everything intact. But there are a lot of people that come from the mainland, and we do welcome them with open arms because once again, we are all about aloha, and it's very diverse here. So when you come to Hawaii, I like to say it's like a fruit salad because everybody is like, it's just so different. Like you just have different ethnicities here, and it's just so embracing, so fun. And being from Hawaii, I'm just so proud.
Tell me more about what embracing aloha means, because I'm sure it means a lot to you, but I think for people listening in, especially if they're not even from the United States, if they're from like Australia myself, embracing aloha doesn't we I don't think we've heard that phrase before. So what tell us what that means.
So aloha specifically is just about being kind, all about ohana, which also means family. It's about making sure that we take care of one another and making sure that we treat others with respect and we treat others with kindness. And so when we say embrace aloha, we just want everybody to feel comforted. We want everybody to come together as one. A lot of times, and recently we've had something happen in our community. And this was just we have had big events. We've had like the Maui wildfires, that was a very big national event. We've also had some smaller events, and we have these little social media pages here in Hawaii, and they report these things that are happening. Like there's a girl being bullied, or there are people robbing from a local 7-Eleven store. And normally what we do as a community is we come together, so you have a lot of people that are like on the lookout, looking out for one another. Most of the time, I guess I visited New York City, and when I was in New York City, I was so lost, and I just really needed help from some people. And I remember asking like, hey, does anybody know where the subway is? And everyone ignored me. Like many people ignored me. And I thought this is nothing like Hawaii, because in Hawaii, the minute you ask somebody for help, you have five other people and they're all willing to help. Oh, what can I do? Can I get you a ride? We're all about this embracing kindness, helping one another. And just that's what it means to embrace aloha. It's to live aloha, to live kindly, to live respectfully, and to just give love to all.
That I will say you're not the only one who felt a little bit lost in New York. I went to New York for 24 hours on one of my trips to the United States, and I'm from Sydney, which is a city of like 4 million or something. It's not a small city.
Yeah.
And even when I got to New York, I'm like, okay, this is a whole other level. I mean, don't get me wrong, I loved my time there, and there's a certain energy in New York. You can see they're always busy, they're always, moving forwards, but it very different to my time in Hawaii or even Sydney. I can tell you that much. Did you grow up in Hawaii?
Yes, I was born and raised here in Hawaii. I actually grew up in a small town called Ewa Beach. That's how we pronounce it here. I currently live in Ka'ava, and it's kind of a weird pronunciation. So it's Ka'ava is the way to pronounce it. And it's
Ava.
a
Got
small
it.
town on the side of, I want to say Kaneohe, which is also, these are all foreign words. I'm realizing everyone's like, what is going on? But trust and believe, I live near a beach. I live on the side of the island where all you see is mountains, and we have this little boar that comes outside our house. We call him Pumbaa. Yeah, like a black boar. And I am so scared of him because I go in my car at 4 in the morning for the radio show that I work on, and I think, oh my gosh, one day Pumbaa was out there, and I was like, you gotta go, man. You need to go. But yeah, it's I've been so happy to be born and raised here in Hawaii. I honestly wouldn't have it any other way. It was just such an experience.
What the boar Pumbaa, but that's the name of the boar in The Lion King, who's really, really friendly. So maybe if this wild boar is not so friendly, you should call it something. Because also Pumbaa is a name that my brother and I call his obese cat, because he's just like it kind of
Oh
sounds fat.
wow.
So it's like he's a Pumbaa, and he kind of waddles around. Um, because I wanted to ask you, I asked you about whether you grew up in Hawaii, because I wanted to ask you when you do have to go somewhere else, whether it's for a pageant or for anything else, how long is it before you miss aloha, before you miss Hawaii? Because it's a very it's a very special place, I think, because it is separate. The people are very friendly, and there aren't a lot of places in the world that are like it. How long is it before you start going, okay, I feel a bit homesick. I miss the family. I miss the kindness. I miss the sunshine.
It's like right off the plane. Yeah. I think like as soon as I get on the plane, all I could think is, yeah, I'm so excited. And then it turns into, when you watch Tangled, the movie, and there's that one scene where she's crying because she left her tower and she doesn't know if she should go back or if she should stay. And that's me. And I actually was a honoree for the National Puerto Rican Day Parade in New York City. And I also went to a national conference in Denver, Colorado. And each time I got off the plane, I'm thinking, I want to go home. The airport's too big, there's too much people. And a lot of the times, I would say, I'm very ditzy sometimes. And so I could get lost very easily. And so I'm in the airport and I'm like, oh my gosh, I am 24 years old and I still need to figure out how do you get from point A to point B. So let me ask someone. And a lot of the times I realize I ask people and they're just like, look, girl, like I have no time right now, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh. So then, I it's all about independence. I find
Yeah.
it, I figure it out. But I do always miss my home when I leave. I miss my family. My family's like my solid rock here. My directors are my solid rock. The Miss Hoy volunteer directors, they're awesome. But yeah, overall, I'm always homesick. Even though I'm like, oh, I need to get off the rock, then I want to come back. So there's no winning. There's no winning.
You, you make it sound like no matter where you are, you're unhappy. When you're there, I want to go somewhere else. When you are somewhere else, I want to go back. You should just be hovering somewhere in the middle. Have you ever been to down south or Tennessee itself?
Yes, I went for the teen volunteer pageant, and it was such an experience. I've never been to Tennessee, and I went to Nashville first, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is so different. And it was so much adrenaline at the time, but I was just so happy to be somewhere else for, like, I would say the first time in a long time. I say that Nashville just has this different kind of feeling to it. It feels like very embracing, and I don't
Mm,
know if that's because I'm a radio DJ, so I'm like attracted to, like all the radio kind of
yeah,
cities. But it was just such an experience, to see people, even in the way they dress. In Hawaii, a lot of people here, they dress in board shorts and they dress in, slippers. That's what we
yeah.
call it. I don't know if they call it flip flops there, but we call it slippers. And they just dress in tank tops. And then when you go up there, you have people in like boots. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, this is so different.
I call them slippers over here. Although I do know flip flops. One of the things when you interview people from all around the world, you have these have these like different words for the same thing. It's very interesting. Like for example, what we would call in Australia, this is a bit of a crude example, but underwear, right? There's underwear, but in the UK, so we have pants, which in Australia means trousers, pants, right? In the UK, pants means underwear. So they actually have a saying that something is pants, which means it's bad because it's underwear. So there's a lot
Oh,
of I have to be very mindful of who I'm speaking to because sometimes one phrase can mean one thing and sometimes it can mean another. It's interesting you mentioned that about Nashville because it will be my first time in Tennessee. I have spent some time in Texas, but the reason I wanted to go to MVA specifically was because as I interviewed more and more pageant girls from the South, I always felt they were slightly different in a good way. There was more of that kindness. Everyone talks about Southern hospitality, and so I wanted to experience it firsthand to see if that's a real thing or whether people were just saying it. So I am looking forward to it. But it's and I will be spending time in Nashville after the pageant for a week or so. So by the sounds of it, you really enjoyed Nashville. Obviously, it has a rich musical heritage, and I'm sure there's a lot of radio stations there. But it sounds like you really enjoyed your time in Nashville.
I did. Yeah, I had so much fun. I for the first time, we had only gone for a short period of time, and I felt like there wasn't enough time to do everything I wanted to do. And I was like, oh, I need to go back. And so after Miss Volunteer America, I am thinking of going back to Nashville, making it a part of my bucket list, and just being able to really like take that tour of the city and really do more things as well.
I mean, if you really want to do that, I'm going to be in. We're hiring out an Airbnb, me and a couple of pageant friends, you're more than welcome if you want a place to crash. I mean, and also, I think towards the end of that week, there's also going to be another big pageant. I think it's Miss Tennessee and Miss Georgia USA, and I know one of the girls competing. So she just messaged me yesterday and said she got me tickets. So I mean,
Super exciting.
if you want to experience Nashville, you're more than welcome because it is a city that I'm very excited to explore. So that offer's open to you. You don't have to accept it. I can talk more to you about it when we're
Yeah.
actually at the pageant. But you experienced Miss Teen Volunteer America, you said, and another reason I wanted to go over to America is I've never experienced a big scale pageant. I from Australia, pageants are very small. I don't know what the pageant scene in Hawaii is like, but I got to imagine it's not as big as the big pageants, down south. So I'm curious, what was your experience like seeing a big pageant in person?
Well, truthfully, I'd like to say it was one of those moments where I was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing," but I was so scared. Coming from Hawaii and, being able to compete in the pageants here,
Mm,
when you get to the nationals, you think, "What did I just get into?" Because these pageants are like next level. You
yeah.
got when I watched the teen pageant, all I could think was, "Wow, the Miss Hawaii volunteer teen is so good." But every girl on this stage is so good.
Mm,
Everybody has volunteer experience off the wide. Everybody has something to bring to the table, and everybody just has what it takes to be the next person crowned.
yeah.
And it really is just such a amazing experience from what I experienced as the miss watching her teen, to just see my teen be able to represent our state beautifully, and also to just see from this point of view, like, wow, this is you have like 50 or 51 empowering teenagers all in one place, and it's like when I go to Volunteer America, I can only imagine, the
Mm.
talent that's going to come off of the contenders with me, and all the friendships that could be made, because I think that we're all here for a reason, and I believe that we all bring something empowering to the table. So I'm really excited for the opportunity, but at first I was very intimidated, you know
I can understand that. Again, having interviewed so many pageant contestants over the years, I will say because obviously because you booked in for an interview with myself, you guys send in a bio, or some of you send attachments, and I have to say the biographies, the resumes coming in from you guys are crazy in a good way. They are next level. Every girl is accomplished, and as you said, it's almost like there wouldn't be a bad choice. There isn't like whoever walks away with the crown in 2 or 3 weeks is going to be a good choice. Unfortunately, there's only one crown to give out. But let me ask you about radio DJ. You've mentioned that in relation to Pumbaa. So I hope Pumbaa is listening. 4 a.m. So you're on the morning shift?
Yeah, so I do a morning show. It's actually one of the biggest morning shows in the state of Hawaii. It's called the Keola Show. And it's me. We call my other co host, his name is Fat Joe. And then the other person, Keola, obviously it's his show. So he's the main host and we're the two co-hosts. But we get up every morning, 3 in the morning, get to work around 5:30, well 4:30 or so, and then 5:30 we start the show and we go till around 10 a.m. And it's just high
Wow.
adrenaline back to back. What can we do for the community? We share a lot of trending stories in our community, and just having the platform as a radio DJ, it's so fun. It's something that I really enjoy doing. I would say that I kind of just walked into this career, if that makes sense. I actually, I competed in the Miss America system before. And so I was part of Miss Hawaii America at one point, and I had actually met a sponsor, Comedy U Hawaii, and he was like telling me one day, you should come check out the radio and do an air check. And I was like, you're kidding. Like, you're joking. Because I thought, there's no way that I'd ever be able to do radio. And I decided, okay, one day I'm going to take him up on his offer, because I like the challenge and I like to be challenged. And I took him up on his offer and I interned at the radio for a whole year. And then, I had realized, okay, I'm going to give up. And I'm not one to give up, but I was getting so frustrated because I could never find the switch up from pageant to, radio. It's a very big jump. You got like very poised, very formal, still be yourself, but then in radio, it can't sound so pageanty. or rehearsed. It has to just be laid back and be yourself. And I couldn't find the common ground. And I said, I'm going to give up because I can't
Mm-hmm.
do this. And then I finally realized when it was the day that I decided, okay, I'm done. My manager walked in and he slid these hiring papers in front of me and was like, okay, you found it. So now we're going to hire you. And I broke down crying because that was the moment where I realized this is insane, and I really can do anything that I set my mind to. If I have the determination to do it, if I find the resilience to, push through and keep going. And a lot of these things I've learned as I grew older because, as you can tell from my bio, as a mental health advocate, I have a personal story to that. And so I'm just so thankful for my career in radio at the moment. But I do wish to pursue a psychology based job later on in the future.
Just go back a sec to the. I want to clarify. So you were struggling, you said, between the pageant sort of, very a pageant sort of presentation, and then obviously I'm going to assume on radio that doesn't work, especially in Hawaii. You do want to be laid back and, more casual, which probably doesn't go so well in pageant circles. But when you said you were struggling, was it with what the direction of your life or how you were presenting yourself? Was it a combination of those two, or was it something else?
Well, it was a more of a combination of my voice. I
Right.
would say that every time I turned the microphone on, it would always be this switch to like a newscaster interview tone. And I could never find the balance of how, I talk now and how
Mm.
I can, move my voice around. I was never able to find that. And so it was just always like, I'd say 1027 the bomb, all the hits now, and that's so newscaster rather than like 1027 the bomb, all the hits now. Like you can hear the difference and inflection of tone, and that one's a little more relaxed. It's a little more, Asia in her fun environment. And that was the problem that I was having for such a long time. And it took me a whole year to finally realize you just need to stop, get out of your head, and focus on the now and focus on being your authentic self. And I was able to really take that I learned and apply that to the Miss Hawaii volunteer pageant. And I walked into that pageant and I said, I'm going to be myself. I'm going to be authentically myself. I'm not going to walk in here with, a very fake tone of voice. I'm going to walk in here as myself and I'm going to walk away happy because I walked in as myself. And that was something that really helped me during the Miss Hawaii volunteer pageant. And I was just enjoying my time mainly.
Sounds like the struggle to find your voice, so to speak, wasn't so much a vocal issue. It sounds like it was very much tied to. You said you were interested in studying psychology. It sounds like it was much more tied to that because the issue of finding your voice and finding authenticity often comes from a fear of how other people are going to perceive us, right? So if you sound too casual, people will perceive you one way, or you fear that they will perceive you one way. And if you sound too formal, you're worried that people are going to perceive you as being fake or over the top. Was that tied into a fear at all for yourself or trying to find yourself, a journey of self discovery?
I would say that I've went through a lot of bullying in my life, and that is a lot of the reason why my platform is mental health. When I was 15 years old, I went through a lot of bullying, cyberbullying, physical bullying as well in the campus that I went to. And it was such a dark phase of my life, and it really created this traumatic experience where I thought, I have to please people. I have to, in order for people to like me, I have to be everything for people to like me. And that comes with a lot of the trauma that I faced. And being able to overcome that, I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder. And then, at one point in my life, I'd actually, attempted to hurt myself. But I had thankfully survived that attempt. And that was the moment where I realized I am not going to let the things that I went through break me, but I'm going to let these things build me. And I am going to use the pain that I faced as a way to push forward, as a way as fuel, as a way to, create purpose out of the hurt and out of the trauma and out of the pain. And so I would say yes, that it was very mental. The trauma from what I faced before really played a big role in not being able to find my voice, when it came to radio, because I was so self-driven on the thought of you need to sound a certain way. You
Yeah.
have to sound like everybody else, and the truth is you have to sound like Asia. You
Yeah.
have to sound like yourself. And I finally realized that. And the moment I realized that, I unlocked within myself the ability to be able to just be myself with no care in the world. Walk around and be what makes me me, stand up for what makes me me, and just know that at the end of the day, I was me, and there are people who are going to like me, and there are people who are not going to like me. But that shouldn't matter to me.
I mean, I love that. But let's be honest, that doesn't happen overnight unless you're a very, very superhuman special person. I mean, logically, we can see, yes, that's a good decision. Stop caring about what other people think about us. Be authentic, be ourselves. But for many people, that is an ongoing, like it's a journey that never has an end. You're always, trying to be better at it. Um, for yourself, that journey that you just outlined, I mean, you said you were bullied around the age of 15. How long was that process? And are you still continuing with this idea of being myself? Some people are going to love me, some people are not. I can only imagine in radio land where you have such a voice that's even magnified even more. And then pageantry, again, that also happens. Some people are going to like you, some people are not. Um, but that journey is a tough one. I'm just curious, how long has that journey been for you?
I like to say that, healing is not a linear process. I think that when it comes to a mental health condition, specifically depression, you learn to cope with it. You learn to
Mm.
overcome it by all the coping strategies that you learn. And I would say that personally for me, my journey when it comes to, not caring about the noise is that I have to remind myself of the things that I'm grateful for. And I need to learn to practice gratitude because I shouldn't waste my time focusing on why that girl doesn't like me, why I can't please this person, why I didn't get chosen to win. You can't focus on those things. You need to focus on the things in the now and the things
Yeah.
that you can control, and that is your own emotions. And being able to take control of my emotions and understand that I am in control of my own emotions, I am in control of how I treat others. And it is all up to me in the way that I want to feel, is really what has helped me throughout this journey in resilience and in becoming the best version of myself. A lot of times people here, they think, oh my gosh, you're competing in a pageant, like, and they want to badmouth another contestant, like, oh,
Yeah.
you got it, like, you're prettier, you can do it, and I always say, like, stop it, because it's not
Mm.
about that. I'm not in competition with anybody in this room. I am in competition with myself. I'm in competition with being the best version of myself. And I always say it's always a competition with the judges rather than with the girls. And I'm all about uplifting everyone. I want everybody to get along, especially with the aloha that I bring to the table. I don't want to be involved in anything that's unnecessary. And so this journey is it's an everyday journey. You have to wake up every day and you have to choose to be resilient. You have to wake up every day and you have to choose to be positive and optimistic, and life is going to throw you. My life has thrown me every curveball possible. Actually, funny story, but when I competed for Miss Hawaii Volunteer, I had the worst day of my life that day. One of the worst days. I could tell you, I woke up late and I missed my makeup appointment. And then I had to go to interview and I had to do my own makeup. I suck at makeup. That was horrendous, right? After that, I figure out that my hairdresser is not available. I had to do my own hair. Do you know what I did? I went into an Ala Moana, which is a mall here, and I used the tester to do my hair because I had no access to anything. And then I did my makeup in a parking lot on a chair. I have a video of this. Yes. And then I went into the competition and I told myself, it's all about optimism, Asia. It's not like you just didn't do your makeup in a parking lot, but it's okay. And I was so mentally distraught that day from all of that. It was everybody had makeup artists there, everybody had hairstylists, and I just felt so out of place. But I told myself, is this is all part of it. Like you just have to keep going. And I ended up winning the competition with the most horrendous day ever. And I was like, what? How?
I think you should become a pageant coach and you can package that up and sell that because you can win like me by doing your makeup in the parking lot and using the testers in the mall. I mean, I have heard some stories. I interviewed a girl over here in Australia. She had been competing in the same system for years and had never won. And the year that she finally won, she had a rubbish day. She had tripped over in the middle of the road in Sydney, and she's a small town girl. She had gotten food poisoning and had been projectile vomiting the entire day, including during her swimsuit shoot, and during practice she fell off the stage. And then she won. So there's something. I mean, I mean, see, at that point, she kind of went, look, if it's going to go my way, it's going to go my way. And if it isn't, it isn't. Because I've done everything that I can. And, it's not my fault, basically. I mean, when you went into the pageant that you won, did you reach that point of, well, look, I've done everything I can, at least I'm here. Let's just see what happens. Was that your attitude when you went into it?
Yeah, it was honestly my attitude. It was the last pageant that I had decided that I would run in, and it was just a matter of I want to focus on, my degree. I want to focus on my career. And so honestly, when I walked into this pageant, I don't know if I was really prepared, you know. I think I walked into the pageant, but I wasn't as prepared as other people, and that goes back to the saying of I just ran with it. And I told myself, if it was meant to be me, it would be me. And at the end of the day, if it wasn't, it's fine. Because all these women with me, they're great. All the girls I competed with, super loving, super nice. Everybody had such an impactful platform. And I heard it was me, my name. And I realized that is the most insane thing one of the most insane things I've ever heard. Because I was so I had found this thing within myself where I had realized how, you know? And it's one of those moments where you just think, wow, there has to be a higher power, or there has to be, a
Yeah.
higher meaning. Because I told you, I had the most trash day ever. I won the pageant, and then I was in disbelief. And I actually was crying so much to the point where I couldn't even breathe. The title holder was, trying to hug me. And I am so sorry because, I'm not paying attention. She's trying to hug me. And I was like, I had my hands like this. And when I rewatched the video, I had to tell her, I am so sorry. Because I did not realize that I totally ignored your hug. And it was because I was just having this moment of surrealness, but also this
Yeah.
moment of proudness within myself. And every time something, good happens to me, I think of the time of my life when everything was so dark. And it really brings me back to the beauty of life. And I think
Mm.
life is just so beautiful, and where I am now, I'm just so happy to be here. I'm so happy to have met you as well, and to just be able to meet all the volunteer contestants as well. Because when I met most of them at the team pageant, they were all very sweet, very kind, very nice.
Think life is beautiful when you look for the beautiful things. I think when you look for the dark things, you find them. It's like whatever you look for, you're going to find. And as someone who's been through depression myself and has written a book about it, I've been very open about it, suicidal twice. I can understand, I can certainly empathize as when I interviewed Bailey Joy Martin, and she was talking about the struggles that she'd had similar to yourself. And I, I am a bit concerned that in this day and age, that mental health and social media, mental health, whichever way you want to take it, it's not improving as much as we talk about and advocate it. I feel that, and I think social media has a lot of the reason for this. We're not connecting with people. I mean, you talked about the importance of aloha and family, and to me, that is so forgotten now in this day and age. It's so much about followers and who's the biggest influencer. And it's weird when you can see two people who are sitting on a bench next to one another and they're both on their phones and they don't talk to one another. And we've lost the ability to connect. But I'm just curious. I mean, you talked about mental health, and I'm right there with you. If you were fortunate enough to have the crown placed on your head or not in 2 weeks, what are your plans in terms of mental health and advocating for it? Because there's so many different ways that you can take this.
Well, here currently in the state of Hawaii, I've had the honor to, share my story on all local news platforms. We have KITV4, KH12, Hawaii News Now as well. I've also been able to do collaborations with the Department of Education here and speak to
Oh,
7,000 students in the state of
oh,
Hawaii. And by speaking to these students, we just share my story. We share the resources that are available in our state. Here's the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. Here's NAMI Hawaii. Here's the Child Adolescents Mental Health Division. By sharing these resources and just sharing a story, I feel that that is the most impactful part when it
yeah,
comes to advocating for mental health. And, as the next Miss Volunteer America, if I was lucky enough to do that, I would want everyone to know that they always have a friend within me, and that I stand with them, and you are not alone, because it's okay not to be okay. And by doing that, I want to be able to share my story across the United States.
mm,
I want to be able to go into different schools and be like, hey, this is okay. It was okay to feel that way. Sometimes we go through a hard time, but this is
yeah,
how we overcome. A lot of times mental health is so stigmatized, and that's why my platform is called End the Silence, because I want everyone to speak up, and I want everyone to stand up, and I want everybody to know that there is power in sharing our story, and there is power in, we have to build the next generation, and we need them to be mentally strong, and we need them to know that there are these resources available for them. A lot of times people think, when we want to do that to ourselves, we think that's the best way out, and the truth is, like, we don't want to do that to ourselves. We want to stop hurting, but
yeah,
by having these resources available, we can help so much of our youth. 1 in 5 youth across the United States suffer from a mental health condition. It's such a common trait, and with social media on top of
mm,
it, forget it, the statistics are probably higher. A lot of the bullying that I went through was actually on social media, and I had, and I share this story on the news all the time, but there was this one moment that pushed me over the edge when I had just posted a picture of myself and made a caption of "Be the good in the world where there isn't any." And this girl had taken what I had posted, and she said, "Well, I think you should kill yourself." And I thought, that is such a harsh, harmful statement to make. And, living in Hawaii, that thing went everywhere. We're talking 500 retweets and more, to the
yeah.
point where I thought it was so much better to just be gone, not realizing that there are people who love me, not realizing that there are organizations out there that can help me. And so, what I wish to do, what my mission would be, is to just speak to as many kids as possible, to just share all the resources, so our youth know that there is hope and that we can overcome this together as one.
I, I mean, I see comments like that, and I hear comments like that, and I don't understand them. Like, I don't understand the sort of mentality it can take. I get that what we see on social media, sometimes we like it, sometimes we don't. But for me, if I don't like it, stop watching it, right? Stop consuming it, move on. I don't understand the mentality it takes to take time out of my day to say something hateful, spiteful, and to say what, to have that person say what they said to you is just next level on that. I cannot imagine telling anyone that ever. And I know, we have that person probably wasn't in a good place themselves. I do believe that. I think if you're bullying other people, there's something to be said about, what's happening with you. That all being said, if you had the ability to travel back, let's say back to your 15-year-old, 16-year-old self, or at that moment when you saw that message, what would you say to yourself, that your younger self, in terms of getting through that really, really difficult moment? Was there anything you could have said to your younger self, or any advice you would have given?
I would have told her that we make it. I would have told her that, we are going to overcome this. We're going to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I still remember the feeling of how it felt.
Yeah.
The gut-wrenching feeling of, gosh, I'm so hated for no reason. I had a lot of followers when I was a kid because, I was involved in Musically, which is like a TikTok app. And
Yeah.
I had so much followers off of one video that I made. And it wasn't a video I wanted to go viral, but it just so happened to be like that.
Yeah.
And, I realized it was too late. I was already known from kids across the other side of the island, and I had no idea who they were. And I
Yeah.
thought to myself, huh, I don't know how I feel about this, and there
Yeah.
was so much love, but with so much love comes so much hate, and to learn that at the age of 15 and to realize, gosh, like it was such a gut wrenching feeling. I don't wish the pain on anyone, that hurt, that trauma. And honestly, if I was Asia at that time in my older self, I would just tell her to hold on because there's so much coming. The girl that I was before, she would never be able to be in a pageant. She was the girl that never got out of bed. She was the girl that, never talked to anybody. I used to sit in the back of a classroom with my head in my jacket because I was so afraid of what everybody thought about me, and the girl that I am now, I'm just like, what's up, guys? What's going on? It's such a different switch, so confident within myself, so much self love within myself, and just being able to really impact the community has been my favorite thing overall. I share my story, and a lot of the times I share my story multiple times, and not just because, I want everyone to know I've had a hard life. No,
Yeah.
I share this story because I want everybody to know that, we can overcome. This there's just so much to be said when it comes to mental health, and so many things that people don't talk about. A lot of the times, the people who are the most happiest people in the room are the people that are going through a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I share my story because I know that it can impact the community. And that's, I never really have time for myself half of the time because I'm too busy, agreeing to go do this for the state capitol or agreeing to do this. And it's always about what can I do for other people rather than myself. And I feel like that's comes from coming from such a dark place and just wanting to
Yeah.
just give back as much as I can.
I can certainly appreciate you probably don't have a lot of time for yourself, but I'm also willing to bet that when you are giving these talks, I mean, you said 7,000 students, which is amazing. I'm willing to bet that that also fills your cup because you know that you're making a real difference and you're doing what you're passionate about. I'm just curious when you do share your story to those students, and 7,000, that's a lot of students. What is their reaction? Are they able to come up to you afterwards and talk to you? Do you get messages on social media about it? What's some of the reactions that you've had after sharing your story?
There are so many reactions when you share the story. I mean, you have some kids who, are giggling about it,
Wow.
stigmatization probably.
Yeah.
And then you have some kids who, are coming up to you and crying. I
Yeah.
think the most impactful thing about my work when it comes to the students is being able to look at another student walking up to me and just being able to know, like,
Yeah.
okay, like we're on the same wavelength here. And I actually had one student who had come up to me in one of the public schools here after I was done, and she had told me, like, you've saved my life. Like I wanted to go home today, and I wanted to do the worst thing to myself. And after hearing you speak and seeing, you know what you've been able to do, like it's so unbelievable. And I was telling her, like, there is hope, and like these are the resources that are available. And of course I had to tell the teacher what was going on,
Yeah.
because we want to protect the student. But I was able to talk to the student recently, and this girl, she has been a part of an honor society at the campus. She has all these accomplishments behind her now. She is actually a mental health advocate here. She started a mental health club as well. And so it was just so impactful to see that kind of work happen through just being able to share my story. And there are other times where you have some parents that you come across and you meet, and they think, wow, like, thank you so much. Like my son is going through a very difficult time, and I want to be of help to him. And it's really just those interactions with the community, I think, that fill my cup and keep me going,
Yeah.
because I know that maybe not everybody in the room needed to hear me, but one person did. And if I can just impact one person, that's all that matters to me.
I'm willing to bet it's more than one person. I mean, the statistics just in general, even if they don't come up to you, because very often you're suffering in silence, aren't you? Because you don't want other people to be aware that you're going through something because there is stigma. It's not. I often look at mental issues and physical issues very differently. Like if you fall over and you scrape your knee, there's no stigma attached to that. You put a band-aid on there, or you break an arm, break a limb, and you have the cast on it. There's no stigma, and yet we carry around some of those mental health issues, and it's almost like there should be a mental health first aid kit to help us stay on track. But I'm curious for yourself because again, when I was speaking with Bailey Joy, she and I both found that because of what we'd been through, and very similar to yourself, that it's almost like we have a sixth sense or an intuition for when someone else is going through a struggle similar to ourselves. And by the sounds of it, you have that similar sense. So when you're speaking to these students, are you almost able to tell when one of them's coming up to you that, that's someone who's going through the same struggles that I did?
Yeah, I would say that most of the time there's this look in people's eyes. It's this look of finally someone understands. And this
Mm,
look of, I don't want to say desperation because I don't think that's the right word, but it's just a look in somebody's eyes where like you guys are relating to this same thing. It's
yeah.
almost it's almost crazy because there are some times where I'm doing a presentation, and as I'm doing the presentation I'm scanning the room because
Mm,
I'll do a presentation for kids of around, it could be like 300 at a time in a big assembly, and it's a lot harder. But when you have little classrooms you're doing, especially high school students, it's a lot easier. And I think there are times where I'll look around and I feel like I can already pinpoint
yeah.
the people in the room who are sharing the same characteristics as me. And then being a psychology major, you learn about all the body language as well. And so
Yeah.
you learn about crossed arms and, crossed feet. And, there was this one boy that was kind of like in his hoodie and bent over.
Mm,
And then when I started sharing my story, he was listening. But he was
yeah.
listening from a point of view like where he's kind of still closed off, right? And I remember thinking like, I wonder if this boy, is gonna approach me. And then later on he'd come up to me and was like, "Oh, thank you for sharing your story. Like I appreciate it." And he walked away. But I knew like that I was probably right.
Yeah. I think if a boy is coming up to you and saying that, then you were definitely on the money. You mentioned 300. That's a fairly large audience. Obviously, there's no fear of public speaking here, then, is there?
I love to speak. I'm a yapper. That's what they call me. Yeah, I could yap your ear off if you let me. But no, I mean, I was really scared before. I would say that being in radio, you just have to go MC a lot of events, and so you start to realize you don't want to do it, but you got to do it. And so I realized, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it to the best of my ability. But being able to talk about something that I'm so passionate about, it just feels very easy. It's also very easy to share my story as well. And I know a lot of times, sometimes you share your story, and then a lot of times people are like, oh, how could like she share something like that? And that's all stigma. That's
Yeah.
the fear of not being comfortable enough to talk about that. And the only way to get through this mental health crisis that we face as a United States, and as internationally as well, is to talk about the problem. Because if we ignore it, it's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to get worse. And so we really need to come together. We need to speak up. We need to be brave, and we need to share our stories, and we need to encourage others to share theirs. And the only way to overcome this, like I said, is to just come together.
Well said. Can I ask you about the radio for a sec? A very smooth segue. You mentioned a ridiculous waking hour. I mean, morning person or not, it sounds like you're more like waking up in the middle of the night than early morning, if I'm honest. But what's a day in the life of you like? And like, how do you sleep? I've always been fascinated by people who are like shift workers who have to work through the night. I don't know how they survive because I don't know how they sleep because they have to sleep when everyone else is awake and in the middle of the day there's sunshine and all that. What's a typical day in the life of you like when you're working on the radio?
I am so tired, but there's no room to be tired. And so we get up at 3 in the morning. We normally leave our houses around 4. I live a little farther than everybody else, so they all kind of live like maybe 20 minutes. I'm about 30 to 35 minutes, so I gotta drive there. And then we start the show at 5:30 in the morning. And as soon as it turns on, you gotta be like, hey, 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 what's up? And it's like 5 in the morning. And I'm thinking, but as soon as that thing goes off, you're just back to like it's really like voice acting. Honestly, it's really about energy, and it's like being in an Olympic game or Olympic sport. As soon as you're told to go, you just better go and hit the ground running and do your best to your best of your ability. But we sound super energetic. We are the number one morning show, so we gotta keep it up. But we are like super tired. Well, we are definitely sleep deprived, I would say, because once you get home, you still have to kind of show prep for the next day. And so
Yeah.
with show prep comes all the things you're going to talk about, right? So I'm in charge of finding trending stories. So after this, I'll have to go find 6 trending stories in Hawaii. And then I got to make sure that I worded it in a radio kind of way. And then we get out there, we do what we have to do. And it's just constant back to back work. And then on the weekends, forget it, no sleep, because your body is trying to wake up at 3 in the morning. I wish I could sleep in. I can't. I'm like wide awake.
This sounds like see, all this is begging the question: the time you won, when you won your title, how did you not wake up? I don't understand that part because it sounds like you're wired to wake up. So what happened there?
I have no idea. I couldn't even tell you that. I was thinking the same thing. I said, how do you miss your alarm? You get up at 3 a.m. every day, and for some reason you didn't get up at 3 today, and you missed your alarm. Like, how? On the one day you couldn't sleep in, and every other day you try to sleep in, and you cannot sleep in. I'm telling you, there was something out to get me that day. There was something in the air because I
Well, I mean,
had
you say that, but you won the title. So whether it was out to get you or out to help you, that's up for debate, I think.
I don't know. Maybe they thought the makeup was gonna be too heavy on my face, so they decided no makeup for her. Let her do her hair on her own. I have no idea, but it worked itself out. We're here, but
On radios, most of that. I mean, you said you find the trending stories. How much of it is you speak with your co-host and you're just having like a conversation back and forth? How much of it is scripted?
nothing.
Nothing, right? So
Yeah.
it's
So
conversation.
it's all ad libbing off of each other. It's really about knowing who you're working with and being able to really know, like, okay, he's gonna stop talking, so I'm gonna giggle, and then after I giggle, he's gonna say something, and then not talking over each other can be a little hard sometimes. But yeah, honestly I would say that one of the hardest parts, and maybe the worst parts about working in radio is when you're having a bad day and you have to go to work, and we all have bad days. You wake up on the wrong side of the bed, or you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go to work today, right? I mean, we all have those days. And so once again, practice gratitude. I get in the car and I think, okay, I am so happy to have a job. I'm so happy to go to a job today, because not everybody can have a job or go to a job, and that makes me feel a little better. But then sometimes you're just having these days where you're just not motivated, and you're just like, I don't want to do it. But you have no choice, because as soon as that
Yeah.
radio goes on, you have to be like energetic, up to speed. And I think that's one of the hardest parts when it comes to working in radio, is like you're in the public eye all the time, and you have to just go, 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 especially when you're having a rough day as well.
I mean, you mentioned that you guys are the number one morning show. Does that mean you get recognized on the street a lot?
Pretty often, yeah. I actually did a Hawaii News Now interview yesterday, and my name was written down as Asianna. And then I got in there, and the guy was like, Asia. And I was like, no! No! Like, I'm done, I'm hiding. But it was great. It was so funny. But he actually knew I guess, my co host and my host of the show. And so I was like, oh, okay. But he kept calling me Asia and talking about my other two co hosts. And I was like, I just want to do the interview and go home. I'm so tired. And it was already like 4 p.m.
So what time is bed for you, just to clarify?
Bed should be 8. Sometimes bed is like 12. I don't know.
Wow.
Sometimes I can't sleep. The sleep schedule's messed up. And then sometimes I get up late for work also. So, and those are the worst days because I live pretty far from the station. So, if I get up at 5:30 in the morning, I'm not getting to work until like it's already probably 6:45, 6:50 because I get stuck in the I live in an area where there's one road in and one road out. And
Wow, okay.
so, once there's road work, they're stopping this end and they're letting you go and they're stopping them and letting them go. So it's this constant
Right.
battle. Yeah.
I guess you can't say I'm famous. I have a job to get to. You have to let
Yeah.
me through. But I mean, it sounds like you're not going to have any troubles with pageant early morning calls because they would be almost civilized by your standards. I mean, if you're waking up at 5 a.m., that's better than waking up at 3.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'll be all right. I'm
As
excited
as long as
actually.
you don't, as long as you don't sleep through your alarm again. Touch wood. Can I just ask? Obviously, you have a very whacked out sleep schedule. Food, drink, like, do you have time to eat? What's your favorite foods? Do you have coffee, tea? What gets you through the day?
A Coca-Cola. Yeah. I'm literally drinking one right now. Like it just makes
Product placement.
everything better. Like I don't know what's in it, but it's so good. And the Coca-Cola, like if I'm not gonna eat for the rest of the day, and somebody's like, "You want a Coca-Cola?" I'm like, "Give it to me." When we went to the national pageant for the teen volunteer, they have a Coke machine on the bottom floor of the auditorium, and I wanted to raid it. I wanted to raid the whole machine because I was like, oh my god, there's like 5 Cokes in there and I want it all. I don't know what it is, but I just love Coca Cola. It really makes me happy. When it comes to food, I don't know. I'm not really a picky person, so I kind of eat anything and everything that I see. That's been difficult with pageant, trying to watch my weight, and so I think I've just been eating some granola bars and some yogurt. I've been sneaking a brownie here and there. It's been a
Do you
little
have
fun, but the Coca-Cola, I can't sacrifice that. I can't give that up.
I? It's because I was just put a story on my Instagram yesterday because apparently in the southern states there's this, I can't remember the name of it. There's this soft drink that they have, and apparently in Tennessee, it's one of the biggest states for it. They said it tastes a bit like Mountain Dew, and I'm not a big soda drinker, so I don't drink a lot of soda. But when I'm over there, I want to give it a go because it's something they're very proud of. Is it Sun? And apparently there's a pageant for it as well, like Sun Dew or something. Anyway, um,
Sundew.
something, yeah, something
Oh,
they're very proud of. I have to find it when it's over there. How do you have time for pageant prep? I mean, you have such a long day as it is. I mean, like, are you able to go and work out, hit the gym, go for a walk? Do you have any time for a hobby or relaxation?
no hobbies. I think my hobby is just helping the community. I've accepted it. I'm the kind of person that never knows how to say no when it comes to a volunteer opportunity. You got like the news coming and then you have the Hawaii State Capitol coming and I'm just like, "Yes, yes, and yes, I'm going to do it. Whatever you need, I'll be there." And I really need to learn how to say no sometimes when it comes to that, but it's just that like I said, it's that matter of always wanting to help and always
Yeah,
putting myself last. However, I do try to balance it by, coming home and watching a movie. And I'm like, all right, I like scary movies. I'm going to watch a scary movie that might make me feel better. When it comes to pageant preparation, I would say that I haven't had much pageant prep other than mock interview. I've been able to do a lot of that. I've been able to kind of solidify, what do I want to look like on the stage? What do I
yeah.
want my routine to look like? But when it comes to actually, executing and putting it into perspective and being able to actually do it, and this is going to sound like a very hot take, and this is going to be the craziest thing you might have heard in an interview, but I am just going to walk in there and I'm just going to do it. I I don't know what it is within myself, but I just believe that I work better under pressure. And I think that if I prepare myself, I'm going to give myself a complex. I think preparing is good, but over preparing is like too much. it's not raw, it's not authentic. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think I'm just gonna walk in and I'm just gonna be like, I'm here and I'm gonna give whatever I can give on the stage right now to the best of my ability, and this is what I bring to the table. Hot take.
I no, I mean I completely agree with you. As a pageant coach, most of my set, probably about 50% of the time, it ends up with me telling the person, no, you shouldn't be doing a pageant. So, I mean, there's something to be said about I guess knowing how you work best, which is a journey unto itself. Some people really need to be prepared. Some people work better, more spontaneously under pressure. But I mean, B, also, you have to have a certain amount of faith in yourself that, the way you want to do things is the best for you. And I think there is something to be said about over preparation. And I think particularly in pageants, and I think pageant coaches have something to answer for this idea that you really, really need to, have all these sessions and prep all the time, prep, prep, prep. I mean, at the end of the day, I think and I think you're a good example of this because I say you want to create a life you're excited to go back to. I think that is the best thing you can do for your pageant career. I don't think there's anything worse than just doing pageant after pageant after pageant after pageant, and you haven't done anything in your outside life. It's like, I don't care how much you prep your interview skills or you polish them. If you have nothing to talk about, you're not going to be able to interview well. And so, I mean, some people probably want more prep than what it sounds like you have. But I think there's definitely something to be said for being a bit more, I don't know if it's spontaneous, but I think definitely knowing how you work best. And I think I got to imagine that, being up at 3 in the morning and having to deliver and having to sound, full of energy when you're really not, I think that's got to have something to do with it because you're used to, okay, mic goes on, we're live, got to deliver. There's no backing out. There's no, okay, just give me a minute. Like, no, we're talking, we got to go. So I think that probably has something to do with it. I don't know if you ever thought of it in that way.
Yeah, that's actually a super cool way to think about it. I think you're right. I actually did a Hawaii News Now interview yesterday, and I would say that it wasn't the best interview that I've ever given. I think as I'm very hard on myself because there are times when I know I could do a lot better than what I did, and it's not to say the interview was bad, but I just noticed things about myself and was like, you maybe weren't prepared for that. But the problem was that I was over prepared. And I realized
Yeah.
that yesterday because, I had all these little script notes and I'm sitting there trying to rack my brain, trying to figure out, okay, I need to say this and I need to say
Mm.
this and I need to say that. And then I did an interview before I did one with you at my job today. No preparation. And that thing was boom, 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 bow. And I was thinking, huh, maybe I work better under pressure because, I over prepared myself and it was the same thing when it
Yeah.
came to, when I competed in the Miss Hawaii America system and just the America system, it was always to me, it was like, okay, I got to make sure like I know this like a T, do the routine, do this, do that. And, I had one title in that system and it was Miss Latina Hawaii. After that, I went into the Miss Hawaii America and I never won. I placed top 10, but I never won. And I almost think it's because it was so in my head now that
Yeah.
I think back and I think about it. And it was that over preparedness. And when I walked into Miss Hawaii Volunteer, I honestly, I think and I can't speak for everyone, but I really think I was the least prepared girl in that competition. I just depended on the skills that I've learned from every other pageant I competed in. And I
Yeah.
told myself, one and done, you know, do it to the best of your ability and walk away happy that you did it the best way that you possibly could have. And like I said, I won. And when it comes to the national pageant, it's so overwhelming to begin with. And
Yeah.
so I think, when the time comes when we all get up there, there's going to be more than enough time to
Yeah.
prepare for the competition, back to back rehearsals and all that. And so you're right. It's all within my faith right now. And I'm just really hoping, like I said, when it comes to, knowing we're live and we're on air, and when you hit that stage, do it to the best of your ability and leave it there because that's all you could do.
Yeah. I think that's a really cool take on it because I think a lot of the girls drive themselves a bit crazy and anxious because they feel like they haven't prepared enough. And I think if you've been doing the work, I mean, specifically for Miss Volunteer America, obviously you've been out in the community helping, you've been telling your story so many times. See, I don't buy that you're not prepared. I think you're prepared, but in a different way. You haven't prepared in the traditional sense, but when you've spoken to 7,000 students, that is a form of preparation in and of itself. And you told your story so many times, you've been out in the field talking to these students, making a difference. I think that's a very real form of preparation, and I think it's something that's very undervalued when it comes to pageantry, because people say, oh, have you done mock interview, have you done your runway this, have you had an appointment with a stylist? And I'm like, all of that is good, but at the heart of pageantry, it is supposed to be about service, volunteering, in your case obviously with mental health and making an impact. And I just think like that's the work we should be focusing on, right? You should be spending 80% of your time there, 20% of your time on the other stuff. Obviously, interviewing and presenting well is important, but I mean, you talk for a living, so I got to imagine that you've got that side of it handled. So I don't really buy that you're not prepared. I think you've prepared, but in a very unique way that fits you, your career, your lifestyle. But let me just ask you this before we move to the close: where do you see yourself in a year from now, 5 years from now? So obviously you're studying, you're a psychology major, and so at some point you're probably looking to make a shift. But I'm just curious, where do you see yourself in a year from now, 5 years from now?
Yeah, currently I am a graduate student at Chaminade University, Honolulu, pursuing a master's degree in counseling psychology. And so I foresee myself being a LMHC, which is a licensed mental health counselor. And, what I really want to do once again is give my time to everyone per usual. And so I want to open a nonprofit organization in the state of Hawaii and basically just be able to offer free therapy services to our youth, and also free therapy dogs to come around because I love a good dog. I mean, I just can't go wrong. I love dogs. I love animals. I was trying to say that with the least excitement ever, but I couldn't help myself because I was too excited. But yes, free therapy dogs, and then, also just free support groups, and just a place where, maybe we can make like little boba drinks and have little therapists, just a fun, safe, environmental space for youth to come together and know that they belong, for youth to know that, together we are stronger, and, just so they have a safe environment, a safe space to go. So I'm really looking forward to doing that, given I can get the amount of hours that are needed for the program. But I think it'll be worth it in the end, and I'm looking forward to it.
It's good. Adriana, just before we move to the final 10, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to or say thank you to for supporting you along your journey?
Yes, I would love to give a very big shout out to the state of Hawaii. I think that everybody here has been so supportive of my journey. I actually realized recently that I was part of the top 10 People's Choice. So that really meant a lot to me. I know that I come from such a small town, but we have such big hearts, big
Yeah.
support, and we're always willing to help one another. So a very big shout out to my community, a very big shout out to my directors, Tony and Larry, and also just to my family for just being my rock through all of this, and to you as well. Thank you for your time.
It's been a pleasure. Let's zip through these final 10. Number one, what is your favorite word?
Wow, what is going on here? What is my favorite word? Okay, let me think. Wow, I would have failed the pageant interview. My favorite word is aloha.
That, by the way, this is not a pageant interview. I interviewed Alexis Abrams yesterday. She's been on Netflix, and she knew this is actually an actor's studio question. It's from the actors studio, so it's not a pageant interview at all.
Oh,
It's very very different. So if you're struggling with it, don't worry about it. It's got nothing to do with pageantry. So number one, your favorite word is aloha. What about number two? What is your least favorite word?
hostility. That might be a little weird, but it's just my least favorite word because I don't like hostile behavior, hostile environments.
Number three, in life, what gets you excited or what turns you on?
Challenges. I think they really force me to, say, I'm not going to go out like that. I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna do the thing and I'm gonna do it to the best of my ability.
What turns you off?
I would say that it would be anything along the lines of someone being unkind. I think that that really turns me away from people is when I notice that there's no reason to be mean to people and people are being mean.
What sound or noise do you love?
I actually love the sound of, when you have that little hologram thing and then you're kind of like scratching it. I like the way it sounds. I'm trying to. You probably didn't even hear that,
I did.
it's so. I don't know what it is. It's just interesting. It almost tickles my head. I don't know.
It's so oddly specific. I can tell you after, doing hundreds of interviews, I've not heard that one before. That's very specific. What about what sound or noise do you hate?
Ooh, what do I hate? What noise? Maybe anything like high pitched and loud. Like when you're emceeing an event and then you have like the
Feedback?
radio, the mic feedback, and it's like, and you're like, yeah, blew out my eardrum. I don't like those.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. If you could have any one superpower, what would you pick and why?
I would want to fly, because then that would mean that I could stay in bed longer, not have to get up so early for the morning show. And I'm just like, hey, I'm here, guys. I just flew through the top of the ceiling, and I'm ready to go. Let's do it.
I thought your superpower would be the ability to sleep, because it sounds like you're completely unable to do that. So
Yeah,
the
no, I'd
ability to
rather have
get
it
some
fly,
sleep,
because I could sleep as long as I want, and then I'd just be like there in an instant.
that's such a practical answer. I love it. Number 8. What job other than your own would you most like to attempt?
Oh, I know I can do this, but I would want to be an EMT. And I know that's unrealistic because I don't think I could do that. I definitely think I'd see something and then I'd be like, "Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh." So, I want to say that's unrealistic, but if it was possible in another life, I think I'm an EMT for sure.
Is this a blood thing again? Because everyone I've been interviewing lately has been saying they can't do blood, they see blood and they faint. Even when they see their own blood, they faint. Is this another blood thing?
I don't know if it's that. This is gonna sound crazy, but I have like emetophobia. It's like the fear of throwing up. And every time I go to a doctor's office, right, and somebody has a bag by their face, I'm like telling the lady, I'm like tapping the table, I have to go outside. And she's asking me why, and I'm like, because they're throwing up and I'm emetophobic. It's a real thing. It's like the fear of throwing up. And it was so bad before to the point where I used to I actually had to go to therapy for this, aside from the other thing, but it was because I'd actually made myself sick at certain points in the time because I would think that my stomach was hurting and it wasn't. I was just thinking of being nauseous and that was hurting my stomach. And then it reached a point where I started looking at my mom would make food and I would go to the trash. We listen and we don't judge. I'd go to the trash can and I would make sure that the expiration date wasn't bad so I wouldn't get food poisoning. Yeah, it was really bad. So, what did you
I,
ask
I
me?
don't.
Because I'm.
I was no, I was asking about the EMT whether it was something to do with blood, and
Oh, yeah,
obviously it's
no, it
not. It
has
was
nothing
something
to do with
completely
throw up.
different.
It has a
What
lot to do with puke.
what is that? What is the term? Emetophobia.
Emetophobia. If you look it up, you'll be like, wow, she wasn't joking.
I don't think anyone would joke about puke. I don't. But I mean, that sounds terrible because when you worry about something, like when you have a fear, a lot of people get nauseated. But then if your fear is about puking, that just sounds like a vicious cycle. That sounds terrible.
It was horrendous. I had to go to exposure therapy. And oh my gosh. Me and
Hang
my
on,
therapist,
how
we
do you
were
do
not friends for
exposure
a minute.
therapy for fear of puking? Did you have to watch people puking a little bit and then, I mean,
It was like
I,
pictures where they show
oh
you.
my
Oh
God.
my gosh! We listen and we don't judge. We don't judge.
I'm
It
not
was the
judging,
scary
I'm
time of my
laughing.
life.
Oh my god. That's wow,
That's a great
exposure
fun fact, isn't
therapy
it? It's
looking
kind
at
of funny
pictures.
now that I think about it. It is
Wow.
very horrendous of a phobia.
I have no judgment. We're all crazy, I like to say. And you know, if you're not crazy, you're normal and boring. So, but it's just like that. At this stage, after having done so many of these interviews, I'm sure you can understand like how many shows you've done. It's like it's rare that I get surprised. And so whenever I get surprised, I really remember it. And I have to say, I've never heard of anything like that. I didn't know that was a phobia that existed. And now my brain is just thinking exposure therapy for fear of puking. How do you expose someone to puke? And I'm like, anyway, my brain is going weird and wonderful.
Yeah, let's just pictures. It wasn't well.
No, no, it doesn't. Okay. I'm sorry for laughing, by the way. Number nine, what job other than your own would you definitely not like to attempt?
Definitely a police officer. I have like the most respect for police officers. But I just know like they're gonna look at me and be like, "Are you talking to me and telling me to get on the floor?" I'm like, "Get on the floor. Just get on the floor." I don't think I have the authority when it comes to being a police officer. Every time I see female police officers, they look like they could beat me up. And I'm like, "Wow, you you're a little scary. I'm gonna listen if you tell me to do something because I respect you." But no, I mean that's the truth. I don't think I'd be able to ever be a police officer because I don't think I could also get tased. I heard they have to get tased and like pepper sprayed, and I'm okay. I'm a little wimp in that category. Pain tolerance not very high.
That's okay. You don't have to necessarily have a job where you get tased for a living, or you tase other people for a living. That's okay. Number 10, final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I honestly would want him to say that he was proud. You know, he was proud that I held on. He was proud that I continued to persevere despite the pain and the trauma that I faced. Just overall, that he was proud to, have me there with him and to have seen the impact that I've been able to make in the community. And, actually, I think it would be such a cool thing if he would have this little highlight reel video of all the things that I've ever done in my life, the most impactful things I've ever done in my life, just in, 8 minutes or so. And I think that would be one of the most coolest and surreal experiences to just witness. Um, but yeah, that I would just want him to say that he was proud and that he was happy that I was there with him because I would be so happy.
Asiana, it's been a blast. That's it. Thank you so much for coming on and for the time out of your very limited day by the sounds of it.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'll be seeing you in person in a couple of weeks or thereabouts. So best of luck with everything and best of luck at the pageant. And thanks everyone for watching. And we will speak to you next time. Bye for now.